Murdered Soul Suspect, a kind of ghostly detective game with some supernatural elements that made me cry. Can you tell me a little bit about the setup of the game? Obviously you can't go too far into the story, but along those lines.
Well, why don't you do
Yeah, sure. So in Murder Soul Suspect, you play as Ronan O'Connor, who was a police detective in Salem, Massachusetts. At the beginning of the story, you're murdered and you end up in as a ghost in kind of a limbo realm where you need to figure out who killed you to move on in the afterlife.
Where did the idea for this game first come from?
Square Enix came to us, God, about 4 years ago, and we started talking about this as a concept, based purely on the idea of a ghost game. And then we started to evolve it in layers as we brainstormed together. We came up with one of the story ideas of actually knowing something about why you had actually died, which led to, well, let's make it that you were kind of killed and that you were really investigating how and why you were murdered. It became a much more interesting cycle in that sense. So it made sense that you were a detective as a character in real life and then became a sort of a supernatural detective in the afterlife. And it all evolved out of itself that way.
The first incarnation of the game, you couldn't even pass through walls. We thought that the first time we tried that, it felt like a mistake. It felt like a clipping error that you would see in games. And we kind of abandoned it for a while, but then realized that it didn't feel ghostly without that, without the ability to pass through walls. And so when we started bringing it back, it took a lot of iterations to figure out all the things we need to do to present that well, and making sure that all the rules of the world didn't hinder you too much or make you feel too powerful, because that was another thing that was really easy to do, is make him feel omnipotent or omniscient, or even some of the powers came out feeling wizard-like or magical. I'm like, well, that's not spiritual, that's not ghostly. So let's rein it in and shift it into something else that definitely feels supernatural.
So was your intention to make this game scary?
We wanted to make it feel very dark with a scary edge to it, but it's not a horror game. So we're not going into that territory at all. So we're not after jump scares in the same way. We're not trying to give you a sense of terror tension. It's more about doing something which is naturally tense, which is investigation, under the threat of something that could happen to you at any moment. But it's very different from a horror sensibility. We
wanted the heart of the game to be investigation, and we didn't want anything to get in the way of that or conflict. It's an episodic game, and we wrote one episode at a time, and some of them we even wrote out of order because we wanted to focus on, we want to make sure that this investigation makes a lot of sense, and we kind of picked the most important episodes to do first, and then found ways to make sure that they flowed together perfectly. But the story you see now probably took at least 1.5 years to develop,
yeah.
And it wasn't the first complete story that we had for this game. We went down other avenues and felt that it wasn't completely it wasn't hitting every note we wanted to hit with a supernatural investigation thriller game.
What do you hope that gamers can expect to take away when they play Murder Soul Suspect?
What I hope that they get is a sense of having had a very unique experience in the game space, and something that is a little bit surprising and entertaining, but not entertaining in a way that they've traditionally had before. It really does kind of evolve as a fairly unique emotional experience.